Hey y'all, Tyborg here. A comment I keep getting on a lot of my videos is, how do I do high damage in Thrill of Fight 2? I feel like I'm throwing hard, I think I have good form, I think I'm strong, but the game says I have pillow fists. So I'm not the hardest hitter in the game. There's a lot of people who either are actually much stronger than me, can do a lot of damage, and there's also people who have found all sorts of exploit punches. Some of my videos have talked about these and can do big damage. But I can regularly, on the current version of the game, get over 60 damage on my power punches, so I'm a pretty hard hitter. I know a lot about the game mechanics, so I've got to make a video to try to help y'all out on how, if you are trying to box realistically, whether you have a boxing background or not, you can still get good damage in the game. So first off, how does the game calculate damage? That's important to know. So what we're going to talk about is in this video is mostly base damage. So what I mean by base damage is this number. When you're punching the dummy, there's this number, and that's like everything to do with your punch, your trajectory, the alignment when it comes in, the velocity, all these different factors I'm going to talk about, they all add up to this number. Then when you're in a fight, there's other systems that come into play that are going to modify that number. So I made a video that talks about the move in, move out. So if someone's moving into your punch and you hit them with a 60 damage punch, that might actually be 80 or 90. I don't know. They calculate it in the background, but either way it gets a big boost, or a debuff if they're moving away from you. Then I also made a video talking about the stance system, where if you're defensive you take less damage, if you're attacking you take more. Anti-spam, which is, you know, if you're throwing like crazy, then you become more vulnerable. So all of those are just going to modify this base number. So go watch those other videos if you want to understand how those mechanics work. We're going to talk about getting your base damage up so that you are hitting for, hopefully, 50 to 60 on your power punches. That's where most of the hard hitters in the game are, at least. Some people with the exploity stuff are getting up 70 plus. But you're probably not going to get there throwing realistically. Most people don't. So, looking at this base number, what goes into it? The first sort of core thing that goes into it is this velocity number. Higher velocity, all other factors being equal, is going to be higher damage. So if I throw a jab and I get low velocity on it, and then I throw the same jab but harder, I get more damage. So I threw those with roughly the same form, but one I threw about 50%, and then the other one I threw significantly harder. See? So 30s or 40s, depending on whether I'm closer to 5 meters per second or 7 meters per second. So all else equal, velocity is your sort of core factor in the damage. You want to get your velocity up. That's going to come from throwing harder and with better form, and we'll get there in a minute. What else goes into it? So they've added all sorts of mechanics in the background. I'm just a player like y'all. I don't have access to the code, so I don't know exactly how they work, but I've talked some with the dev and other people who, you know, have played a lot, and I have some idea of how some of these systems work. In the current damage system, alignment matters a lot. So what that basically means is at the point of impact, is the in-game arm, is the forearm to the fist driving through the target in the same direction as your punch. So basically, if you're throwing like a slap where the force of the punch is coming across like a hook, but your arm is not turned in like a hook, then you're going to get way less damage than if you do turn it in like a hook. So you'll see, let me show you. Here, I threw a slap at 13 meters per second. So that's much faster than I throw most of my punches. But you can see it's only 32 damage. And the reason for that is because I never turned in and got that alignment, and it was basically just a slap, which in real life would do less damage because the weight is not actually behind the punch, as opposed to that's almost 11 meters per second, and we're looking at 56 damage. So make sure that if you're throwing those hooks that you're turning your arm in. So your arm at point of contact should be basically perpendicular to your chest. parallel to your chest. It should not be perpendicular to your chest. That's a slack. But if you turn it in, then as long as it counts, you're going to get much higher damage. Also on straights, similarly, if you're like floppy armed, you might come in off alignment. It's a little bit harder for me to mess this up on purpose, but basically you want that arm aligned straight when you land. What else goes into it? I think there's some impact of like a realistic trajectory where they want to stop people from doing goofy floppy arm stuff. So like they actually track sort of the whole trajectory of the punch and give you more benefit if it's more realistic, so to speak. So like if I do something like that, I think that I'm actually still getting the alignment probably here. Oh, there I actually got big damage. So this is where you can kind of get exploity. But yeah, see, some of these are doing way less. And that's because sometimes it's not liking, it's recognizing that this is just like a flicky nonsense punch, and sometimes it's tricking it enough that it looks real. But don't throw those, throw real punches. Okay, so how do you get high velocity, relatively speaking, for a punch type, and get the good alignment and a good trajectory and get that high damage number, get 50 plus on your power punches? First off, the best place to learn this is not from me. I'm not a boxer. It's to go watch other YouTube videos from people like Tony Jeffries, Coach Dave, people who have an actual combat sports background and can teach you sort of good form punching. But I'll tell you, as someone who can get high damage in the game, how I do it. And, you know, use it as you will. Take it with a grain of salt. So generally, I see a lot of people who throw stuff that's very off balance, and, you know, they're just kind of running around and throwing crazy stuff. But to generate power, it's not, people think it's in the arms, that it's in the upper body, that you want to be big and swole. But really most of the power is generated from the legs and hips. And so the key to generating power is, real power is rotation. So you want to be starting with your hips, turning your hips, and then extending the arm at the end. That comes last. And you want to be driving off this back foot. I see so many people that are like the back foot's all way up in the air and stuff, and they're like this, and your feet are all over the place. If you're throwing a rear hand punch, you want to be driving off your back foot, whether it's a hook or a cross. And so you can see I'm in a boxing stance, I'm in a orthodox stance, and I'm basically going to drive off this back foot, turn my hip so it's transferring weight to the front foot, then I'm going to pop my arm out. That's it. I mean, 59, see? 57. Now, it's easier said than done when you're moving around and you're trying to escape an opponent and you don't want to get hit. It's easy to get frantic and start just, you know, doing this stuff. But that's not going to give you power. If you want to get big numbers, you've got to engage your core, get that rotation, and use your whole body for the punch, not just flick your arms out. Jab is going to be kind of similar, but with it being a lead hand punch, you're not going to do a bunch of hip rotation this way, and it's not a power punch, so you're not going to rear back and really load onto your front leg, but you still want to drive off that back foot, you know, and engage your whole core. You can even kind of flick the hips a little bit. You don't want too much telegraph, but see there I'm transferring weight from my back foot to my front foot. So as I land, I'm no longer on my back foot. And you can see my jab is actually getting pretty good damage doing that. Lead hook, a lot of people throw at this like super tight thing like this, which actually the game gives you more damage than it should for that. But if you're maybe not quite as big, not quite as strong, you try to do this, like, you might be getting the 30s as opposed to me getting 40s. Oh, 54, that's silly. But really with a lead hook, what you want to do is transfer that weight onto your lead leg so you can explode and kind of transfer it back. So you can prime the hips. Because remember, it's all that hip rotation, and if you're bladed in an orthodox stance, you can't really throw a powerful lead hook without either pivoting, which will allow your hips to turn because your back leg is freeing it, or loading onto your front leg, and then that's opening your hips to allow you to twist them back. So you'll see here 60 damage on my lead hook. And that's because I'm priming it and then turning those hips back, and the arm follows. So really, that's all I've got, I think, for damage. Go watch some real boxers who are doing, teaching videos, and get the punch mechanics down. And then you don't have to be super strong or anything. You'll get good damage in the game. It's pretty forgiving. And try to work on just slowing down in game and looking at turning defense into offense so you can stay grounded and really put weight behind your punches, right? Because if you watch your opponent miss, they miss right in front of you, well, now you have time to actually load onto that back leg, get that rotation, and throw a 60 damage punch. Whereas if you're just trying to come in at them and overwhelm them, and you're not really focused on their throwing back at you, you're just going to be doing that stuff, and you're going to get 30s and 40s. And then, they're going to come back and knock you out. So that's all I got. That's how you can get damage, at least how I get damage. If this wasn't helpful, there's something else you want to know, there's something that's not making sense, it still doesn't, it's not clear to you why I'm getting more damage, feel free to leave a comment. Ask me any clarifying questions to demonstrate a certain punch type, whatever. I'll make another video. I do this because it's fun for me, and I want to help inform the rest of the player base. So that's all I got. If you like this kind of content, please like and subscribe, leave comments, engage with the content, and then I'll be, super motivated to keep making more of it. Y'all go kick some virtual butt, and see you next time.